Welcome to this news report. We're focusing today on political and general news from the Faroe Islands.
That's right. We'll be drawing directly from Faroe's news sources, aiming to give you the information without adding our own analysis or opinions.
Exactly. And if you find this useful, you can find more videos like this over on the YouTube channel PalsFundamentals.
Don't forget, all the sources we're using today are linked below if you want to dig deeper.
So today's segments, we'll look at business and the economy first.
Yep. Then population trends, fisheries policy,
A quick note on Shetland's views on autonomy, some Faroes political updates.
a NATO naval exercise happening in nearby, and housing and demographic challenges.
And we'll finish up, as always, with the weather forecast.
Okay, let's dive in. Business and economy, Megan Faleg Bunarmana, MBM, the Farmers Association.
Right, their financials. What's the story there?
Well, the 2024 annual report shows a loss, actually, just under 1 million Faroese kroner.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Any reasons given?
It mentions that plans for cheese production in Skálavik are taking a bit longer than they'd hoped, and attempts to break into the Greenlandic market haven't really borne fruit yet.
I see. What about overall sales?
Total sales in 2024 hit 183.8 million kroner. That's actually down 2% from the year before.
And employee numbers?
Down slightly too, an average of 55 employees, which is 2 fewer than in 2023.
But there was some positive news, right, about sick days?
Yes, quite significant improvement there. The average was only 2.6 sick days per employee in 2024.
Wow, compared to...
Compared to 5.3 days in 2023, and get this, 7.6 back in 2022. So a really positive trend.
Definitely. What's the outlook for 2025?
They're expecting milk sales to dip slightly, but sales of milk extracts might increase a little.
And membership in the association?
That's continuing to decline, unfortunately. But the total milk quota is actually creeping up slowly.
How much is that now?
It's currently at 7,385,172 liters.
And how much milk did they actually receive last year?
The cooperative got 7.2 million liters in 2024, which is up from 7 million the year before.
Interesting. And how many producers are left?
At the end of 2024, there were 14 milk producers in the Faroe Islands.
Okay, let's shift gears. Population trends and regional development. There was an opinion piece looking at this.
Yeah, specifically how the subsea tunnels have affected different regions. The author kind of categorizes the islands.
Right, the A4R, B4R thing.
Exactly. A4R being mostly Tórshavn and so on. This piece focuses mainly on Landnýringsfreyjar, the North Faroes.
And what's the observation there?
Well, since 1995, Tórshavn's share of the population has grown pretty steadily, from around 38% to nearly 43%.
Oh, the North Faroes.
They've kind of fluctuated between 36% and 37%, so Tórshavn is significantly larger now in population terms.
And any recent uptick in the North's share is linked to what?
The author reckons it's largely down to fisheries and aquaculture booming in that area.
Interesting. The piece also compared Klaksvík and Runavík municipalities now.
It did. Runavík shows steady relative growth since '95. Klaksvík, on the other hand, took an initial hit after the Tunnelin, the North Isles Tunnel, opened.
But that's stabilizing now.
Seems like it's flattening out, yeah. The author thinks Klaksvík was maybe a bit slow to adapt.
Slow to adapt to the tunnel.
Yeah, but that they've made some positive adjustments more recently. The author also has this long-held view.
Which is?
That Eystur Kommuna, the East municipality, actually benefited more from that tunnel than Klaksvík did.
Why is that?
Because of its central location, basically. Makes sense, geographically.
And what about Fuglafjörður?
The piece suggests it's kind of been left behind by Runavík, Eystur Kommuna, Ness, and Sjóvar. It's seen as being on a negative path, maybe even risking its autonomy down the line.
That's quite a contrast with Eystur Kommuna's development post-merger.
Absolutely. The author puts Eystur Kommuna's success down to good decisions, while Fuglafjörður maybe focused too much on traditional industry, not enough on a knowledge-based society.
And Ness and Sjóvar are seen as winners.
Yeah, winner municipalities and Eysturoy. They saw big growth after the Eysturoy Tunnelin was approved and built.
Makes sense. What about Sundó municipality?
Its growth seems to have stalled, even declined recently.
And the likely reason?
Probably traffic shifting south through that new Eysturoy Tunnelin, bypassing them.
So the overall argument is that these big infrastructure projects create winners and losers.
Pretty much. Making the current municipal structure feel a bit archaic or outdated.
And there's a concern some municipalities focus too much on business.
Yes, potentially over the needs of residents, but the author stresses, population is the absolute foundation for providing municipal services.
Right. Okay, let's move to fisheries policy.
Yeah.
There's criticism about fish being landed abroad.
Yeah, an opinion piece questioning why more Faroese caught fish is ending up in places like Norway instead of being processed at home.
The author asks why Faroese know-how isn't being better protected.
Exactly, especially given the rich resources. They look back, to the EU boycott and when Norway closed its ports.
That forced the Faroes to invest heavily in their own processing plants, right?
It did. And they brought in tariffs on fish landed abroad to protect those investments and jobs.
But that trend is reversing now.
That's the author's lament. Policies now seem to be favoring Norway and Norwegian processing.
How so? What changed?
While the previous coalition allowed up to 15% of catches to be landed abroad, plus some temporary exemptions for species like blue whiting,
And the current government.
they're continuing that, even increasing it. Now it's 25% of blue whiting, mackerel, or North Sea herring catches allowed to be landed and sold outside the Faroes.
25%. And there's a specific decree, too.
Yes, a minister's decree allowing 40% of mackerel and 100%, fully 100% of North Sea herring caught by Faroes boats in Norwegian waters to be landed and sold outside the Faroes.
Wow. And another exemption for blue whiting.
Correct, an exemption for landing blue whiting in the Faroes that runs until June 16th, 2025. Seems a bit counterintuitive, maybe.
So the core argument is, keep the value-adding process at home.
Precisely. Increase production in the Faroes. Don't just ship the raw resources off for other countries to profit from while Faroes workers and plants sit idle.
The author brought up that old slogan.
Alti till lands. Everything to land. And then added, kind of wryly, Alti lands I Nora, Ella, Alti utenlands.
Meaning, everything to land in Norway. Or, everything abroad.
Yeah. They conclude it's a wrong and dangerous path that needs correcting.
Okay. A quick hop over to Shetland now. What's the feeling there about autonomy?
A recent survey in the Shetland Times found that 75%, three-quarters, of Shetlanders would prefer an arrangement with Scotland similar to what the Faroes have with Denmark.
Interesting. And what did John Goodlad say? He used to lead the Shetland movement.
He stated that greater autonomy for Shetland won't come from Scotland or London. It'll only happen if Shetlanders themselves really push for it.
Makes sense. Back to Faroese politics. What happened with that vote in the Lukting parliament?
Right, an opposition proposal concerning Bustadir, the public housing agency. It came from the parliamentary auditors.
And it passed.
It did, yes. But interestingly, not with full coalition support.
Who voted against or abstained?
Ingelin Didriksen-Strum, Hans Jacob Thomsen, and Herver Paulsdottir voted against it. Hangi Hoydal actually left during the vote, and Bjarni Hammer abstained.
Even though the Finance Committee recommended approving it.
Unanimously, according to the news outlet Noralisi. So, yeah, a bit unusual.
Okay. And the Centre Party, Ní Flokran.
They're holding their annual national meeting on May 24th. It'll be at Dancy Free in Tórshavn.
And he's special guest speaker?
Yes, Iran Massas, who was a first-hand witness to the Nova Festival attack.
Right. The agenda's coming soon, they said.
That's what they indicated.
All right, let's talk about military matters. This NATO naval exercise, Dynamic Mongoose 2025. It started.
It has, yes. Kicked off in the North Atlantic. It's an annual thing.
How long does it last?
About 2 weeks, roughly. It'll wrap up in Norway.
And involves Faroese waters.
It does. Participating ships will enter Faroese territorial waters to conduct exercises, coordinated navigation, aviation, search drills.
What's the main purpose? Anti-submarine warfare.
Exactly. It's an anti-submarine warfare exercise designed to show and, strengthen NATO's ability to handle submarine threats coming from the north.
Which countries are involved?
It's quite a list. USA, UK, Netherlands, Norway, Iceland, Denmark, Poland, Canada.
And the Faroes.
And the Faroe Islands, yes. Our patrol vessel, Brumell, is participating by monitoring the exercise near the islands.
Where exactly will the activity be concentrated?
Mainly north of the islands, within Faroese waters and airspace. They'll generally avoid the straits and sounds between the islands.
Though some ships might come into port or close to shore.
Potentially, yes. Peak activity near the Faroes is expected around this weekend and early next week.
Can local boats contact these vessels?
Yes, they can be contacted on VHF.
And what about safety and interference with local traffic?
NATO has safety regulations for these exercises. The aim is minimal impact. The basic principle is that the exercising forces should give way to avoid interfering with regular traffic or activities like fishing.
And this isn't the first time.
No, it's the 4th year in a row that Dynamic Mongoose has taken place near the Faroe Islands.
Okay. Finally, let's touch on housing and demographics again. Another opinion piece.
Yes, looking at the housing shortage, but also broader demographic issues. It references a recent Flag Day speech, actually.
What were the key points?
Well, the changing shape of the population, more elderly people, and fewer young people entering the workforce as quickly as they used to.
How long does it take now, on average?
The piece says it takes an average of 23 years now for a young person to start contributing back to society, fiscally speaking.
So there's a worry about having enough workers to support the economy in the future.
That's the concern, yeah. Political talks focus on things like shifting the retirement age for financial sustainability.
But not enough talk about new ways to generate revenue.
Apparently not much public discussion on that. The author also criticizes the dismantling of earmarked funds, calling it political folly.
What's the connection made between development, the workforce, and housing?
The author argues the fast pace of development and the competition between public and private sectors for the limited workforce are driving up prices generally.
And that worsens the housing crisis.
Exactly. It makes it even harder, especially for young people. Many Faroes who get educated abroad just can't afford to come back home because of housing costs.
So their skills are lost to the Faroes.
That's the implication. The piece ends with a plea, really, to politicians to try and create a country that works for both the young and the old by tackling these issues head on.
A lot to think about there. Okay, let's wrap up with the weather forecast for the next few days. How's Sunday looking?
Sunday starts with light northerly or variable winds, less than 5 meters per second. Should be clear to partly cloudy, mostly dry.
Then a change.
Yes, late morning, the wind turns westerly, picking up to a gentle or fresh breeze, say 3 to 8 meters per second. It'll become overcast but stay mainly dry. Westerly winds continue into the evening and night.
Temperatures for Sunday.
Morning temps between freezing and 5 degrees Celsius. Afternoon highs between 5 and 9 Celsius.
Okay, Monday.
Monday sees a gentle to fresh westerly breeze, 3 to 8 meters cloudy, with a chance of occasional showers in some places. Wind turns southwesterly late afternoon. Temps between 6 and 11 degrees.
Tuesday.
Tuesday keeps that gentle to fresh southwesterly, 3 to 8 meters, still cloudy with occasional showers. Then it gets overcast with proper rain in the afternoon. Evening and night bring variable cloud and maybe some more showers. Temps 7 to 11 Celsius.
Wednesday.
Wednesday looks a bit better. Gentle to fresh southwesterly again, 3 to 8 meters, but variable cloud cover and mostly dry. Temperatures climbing a bit, 8 to 13 degrees Celsius.
And looking ahead to Thursday.
Thursday, the wind goes westerly. Gentle to fresh, maybe up to 10 meters at times. Variable cloud cover, staying dry. Temperatures similar to Wednesday, maybe a touch cooler, 7 to 12 degrees Celsius.
Okay, that covers the forecast. So that brings us to the end of this news report from the Faroe Islands.
We touched on the economy, population shifts, fisheries, policy debates, Shetland's views, local politics, that NATO exercise, and the ongoing housing and demographic challenges.
Remember, if you want more detail on any of this, the links to the original Faroese sources are below.
And maybe something to think about. With these trends in regional population development, especially linked to big infrastructure like tunnels, what sort of long-term societal shifts might the Faroe Islands need to prepare for?
A good question to ponder. Thanks for joining us.